Are you curious about how to multitask in your homeschool? Are you struggling with finding time to teach reading when you're also trying to homeschool more than one child and take care of the house and make meals and any of the other things that you're responsible for? Well, if that's the case, today I want to share some of my thoughts about how we do this in our homeschool and some tips for how to make multitasking easier in your homeschool. This topic comes to us from a question that I received from email. If you have a question that you would like me to answer on video or on the podcast, you can email me at sarah@homeschoolingforhim.com. So today's question comes from somebody who asked about multitasking. And she says, we've had both of our older kids reading sentences by age 4. But by the time our third kid has come around, it seems harder to make time for her dedicated lessons. She's just turned 4 now and is still only reading 3-letter words. It's hard to learn that balance when you add a new kid to the lesson roster. First of all, thank you so much for asking this question. I absolutely love this because I know it's something that all homeschool parents struggle with at different seasons in our lives. It's definitely something that I've struggled with as well. And so I want to share some thoughts today about how we can make multitasking a little bit easier in our homeschool. And I want to share 3 tips that we have used successfully in our homeschool to make the balance of teaching more than one child a little bit easier, and how you can apply those in your homeschool as well. Before I was a homeschool parent, I had over a decade of experience teaching in public and traditional schools, and I spent a bunch of that time teaching in a Montessori school. So if you aren't familiar with Montessori, the way the classroom works is that it's a mixed age classroom, much like a homeschool, and also, all of the kids are learning different things at the same time. So each morning we had a large work block where the kids were free to choose different activities to work on, different topics to learn, whatever they were interested in, they could explore. And the entire classroom of kids was doing this at the same time. So basically, we were homeschooling our classroom of 25 all at the same time. And so during that time, I learned a lot about multitasking and about helping kids learn how to work independently. And that is my first tip for anybody that is struggling with multitasking in their homeschool. And that is to really teach your older kids how to work independently. I think this is one of the reasons why it's so important to teach our kids to read, because reading really is the key that unlocks their ability to work independently. Once our kids can read the directions, can read the textbook, can read to themselves, it opens up so many more possibilities and options for them as far as how they can work independently. And so that's one of the reasons why reading is so important for us to teach as homeschool parents. But it's important when we're first starting this that we actually take the time to teach our kids what it looks like to work independently, and that we take the time to teach them strategies that will help them to be able to be successful. I feel like there's kind of 3 different strategies that we need to teach our kids in order to help them work independently. And the first one is how to problem solve. So we need to teach our kids exactly what we want them to do when they come to something that they can't do or that they don't know what to do. So what strategies could they do if they get to an assignment and they don't have the materials? What could they do if they get to a problem and they don't understand a word that they see? What could they do if they're working on their math and they can't remember how to do this kind of problem? All of these things we need to work through and teach our kids explicitly exactly what we want them to do in that situation. And the more that we can do that, the more that we will give our kids a toolbox of different strategies so that when they get stuck, they know what they should do and what we expect of them. The second thing that we want to do is we want to teach our kids where to look for help. And this will vary depending on the problem. We might teach them what situations would be a good time to ask a sibling. So, for example, if there's a supply that they can't find, they might be able to ask a sibling for help looking for it. Or if there's a word that they don't know, maybe they're going to be looking in a dictionary. So we're going to help them find where it is that they'll be able to get those solutions and to help them remember that when they are stuck. This is something that we can teach our kids. It's also something that we can write down for our older kids as well. So maybe our older kids might work with us to make a poster that says what to do when I'm stuck. And then the kids might write 3 or 4 ideas on the poster and stick it on the wall in the space where they're working so that they have something to refer to when these problems arise. And then the final thing that we really need to teach our kids is what we want them to do when they are completely stuck and they need our help. So if you want your child to come into the room where you are working with your younger child or where you're doing something else and ask you a question, then you might teach them how you want them to do that. Do you want them to just barge into the room and interrupt? Or is there some sort of a way that they can get your attention without interrupting the train of thought that's happening in the lesson? You might also tell them what you want them to do instead. So maybe you might want them to put aside what they're working on and to do some quiet reading for a few minutes while they're waiting for you. And then you're going to come back and check in with them as soon as you're done with your reading lesson for your younger child or whatever else you're working on. So that might be another option, just depending on your family and your circumstances. But whatever it is, you want to figure out what you want them to do when they're stuck and then teach them to do that thing. So the more that we can teach all of these strategies to our kids, the better that they will do at becoming independent learners and at doing what it is that you want them to do when they get stuck. The second thing that we really want to do as homeschool parents to help make this multitasking problem easier is to really take some time to design our homeschool intentionally so that it supports our need to homeschool more than one child. So there are a lot of choices that we can make that will make homeschooling more than one child significantly harder for us. And there are also choices that we can make that will make it easier for us. And so if we can take some time to really think intentionally and set ourselves up for success, that's going to go a long way towards having a great homeschool year, homeschooling more than one child. So here's what I mean. First of all, you want to teach as many subjects as possible to all of your children combined, or to as many children combined as possible at the time. So in our homeschool, we teach subjects like science and history and Bible all together as a family. All of the kids are learning the same thing at the same time. And we rotate through a cycle. So for example, in history, we're studying world history right now. We're going through chronologically. When we finish, we'll probably move to United States history and then move back to world history. And because I plan to teach these subjects to my kids multiple times over the course of their school, I know that they'll get a little bit out of it now, but they'll get more out of it the next time that they see and hear that material. And so I'm teaching the same subject to all of the kids with the expectation that my older son is going to get a lot more out of it than my younger daughter will. And that's okay because they're at different ages, and I know that my daughter is going to have more time to be able to hear this information as she gets older. So right now, when we're reading, I will read the material out loud to both kids, and then I will ask my son some follow-up questions to make sure that he understood. So we're doing the same material, but my expectation for my son is that he reads, that he listens, that he remembers, and that he's able to answer the follow-up questions out loud. For my daughter, my expectation is that she is in the room while I'm reading it, and that she hopefully is going to pick up some of it. She actually usually remembers quite a bit, so it works out really well for us. If you have older kids, you could also do part of the subject together and then assign your older kids some follow-up work to do independently. So for our science curriculum, we might read the lesson together and do the science experiment together. And then I might assign my older son to write in a science journal or to draw what he has observed or to do some sort of a follow-up project that maybe my younger daughter would not be doing. Or I might assign my kids independent reading based on their reading level that corresponds with the topic that we're studying. So there are lots of different ways that you can make your homeschool customized to your kids' ages while still combining for as many of those topics as possible. The other thing that you want to consider when designing your homeschool is to include a mix of subjects that are more hands-on for you as the teacher, as well as subjects that are more hands-off for you as the teacher. We homeschool our kids because we want to play a part in their education. And so there's definitely a place in our homeschool for subjects where we are teaching our kids directly what it is that we want them to learn. However, as a homeschool parent, practically, it's not going to be possible to teach every subject to every child 100% of the time. There's going to need to be some time where our kids are learning on their own independently, or where they're taking advantage of a video resource or some other way that they can learn. And this is actually really important for us because those times when our kids are learning independently are the times when we are teaching them those skills of being able to find information on their own. And when our goal is to raise a child who is a lifelong learner and who will graduate from our homeschool excited and ready to learn new things on their own that they're interested in, it's important that we're teaching our kids those skills. And so when we have those subjects where our kids are working more independently, that's our opportunity to teach those skills now. So when we are homeschooling our kids, it's important that we are choosing a mixture of those subjects that are more time intensive for us and the subjects that are more independent for our kids. And when we do that, we can balance those more independent subjects with time that we're spending with another child. So this year, for example, my son is going to be doing a video-based math curriculum. And I'm really excited about it because he's going to be able to learn the new math lessons that he needs to learn from somebody else who's going to teach him those lessons via video. And while he's working through those videos, it will give me some time to spend one-on-one with my daughter. So we're going to set up some of those experiences in our homeschool intentionally this year. And the reason for that is to make sure that I have that one-on-one time to spend with each child. And then the final tip that I have for you is to really be creative about when and how you're doing homeschool. It is totally okay to find time at any point during the day to homeschool your kids. Homeschool does not have to start at 9 a.m. and end at 3 p.m., just like public school does. And there are lots of ways that you can incorporate learning into your family's rhythm and routine and into your child's life at times other than that when you might be able to get some one-on-one time with them. One time period that we really liked to use when my kids were a little bit younger was nap time. We would use my younger daughter's nap time as a time to spend some focused time with my older son. And so that was a time that we really took advantage of. Now that doesn't work quite as well for us, so we're doing a little bit more one-on-one time in the evenings. When my husband is home, then that gives us more opportunity to take some individual one-on-one time with the kids. And so during the season, when you're teaching a child to read, you might spend a few minutes in the evenings working on your reading lessons. The great thing about teaching a child to read is that you don't want to spend a long time at a time doing it. In general, I like to spend about 2 to 5 minutes per year of your child's age. So if you're teaching a 3-year-old like the person who asked the question is, then you want to spend no more than 6 to 15 minutes working on that reading lesson. So it really is only a short period of time that you need to find. It can be easy to find that time in the evening sometimes when you have a little bit more support from your spouse. Another option that you can do is to take advantage of the time when siblings are maybe at activities. We're going to be doing this year. We've signed my son up for some extracurricular activities. And so during the time when he is participating in the extracurricular activity, I am already planning to bring some homeschool materials along and to spend some time working with my daughter. So that's going to be a time that we're definitely going to take advantage of and use to our fullest to be able to get that one-on-one time in with her. So no matter what your family's schedule looks like, really look at it creatively and just think about when the times are that you can take advantage of to add in a little bit of extra one-on-one time. So hopefully these 3 strategies will help you to be able to multitask in your homeschool and be able to homeschool more than one child while finding time to focus on each child individually. It's really important to teach your kids to work independently and to give them those strategies that will equip them for success with working independently. You also want to look at how you're designing your homeschool to make sure that there are some hands-off times for you. And then you want to really be creative with how you're thinking about your time. If you have a question that you would like to see me answer, please email me at sarah@homeschoolingforhim.com, and I would love to answer your question here as well.